Hello everyone and welcome back to the video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the best and worst Fire Emblem characters in Smash Ultimate. For some reason, there are 8 Fire Emblem characters in this game. We're going to be ordering them from worst to best, as well as ranking them relatively amongst the rest of the cast. As I already mentioned, there are 8 Fire Emblem characters in this game, which are going to be Lucina, Violet, Corin, Roy, Crom, Robin, Ike, and Marth. And the worst Fire Emblem character in this game, by not a significant margin, but he's definitely the worst in my opinion, is going to be Ike. Now, the main issue with this character is he is one of the most linear characters in this entire game because his entire game plan revolves around Nair, and that's kind of it for this character. He does have a pretty big sword, and he does hit fairly hard, but every single combo starter that he has is pretty much Nair. And yes, down tilt can combo at some percents as well, but outside of that, you're just getting a lot of one-hit interactions. And while he is hitting hard, he has abysmal mobility, so he's not often able to kind of follow up with his pressure. And yeah, you have this massive up air for juggling, but when your stats are so bad, it's really difficult to actually pin your opponent down. Plus, Ike's disadvantage is just awful because of his stats as well as his frame data not being super great. Now, it's not like Crom, and we'll get to Crom in just a little bit. He does have that side B for recovery, so at least it's not the worst thing in the world, but Ike overall just has a very weak disadvantage, super linear game plan, and even though he hits hard, that's kind of all he does, and I would have him in the bottom tier for this game. Our next Fire Emblem character is going to be Robin, and she's got 2 major issues, kind of like Ike does, and she also shares an issue with Ike, which is going to be her mobility. She's the second slowest character in this game, only being beaten out by Incineroar, and luckily she does have some decent projectiles, specifically the second charge of her neutral special. I actually think is really strong just as a projectile. And then you have the Falco laser variation, you have the one that chunks your shield and also just stuns your shield for a very long time, which is the third charge, and then finally you have the full beam. Now, normally you're not going to be getting hit by the full beam, but if you do manage to connect it, it's actually a very strong move, so it's definitely something to keep in mind. And Robin's ledge trapping is actually pretty phenomenal. Between her having Holy Fire or PK Fire, whatever you want to call it, and just insanely big hitboxes that kill really early, she can be incredibly scary, but that's if she has Levinstone. That's if she actually has charges on her side B, and that's going to be the main issue for Robin. The fact that her things just run out of charges is so bad for this character. If she always had Levin and always had back charges, it honestly wouldn't be that bad. And a majority of the time, you're not going to worry about a situation where you run out of upbees off stage and that's going to kill you because the uppie actually recharges pretty fast. But the fact that you have to worry about that situation and the fact that your neutral is sometimes just 10 times worse because you don't have your main projectile or your aerials aren't threatening, it just makes this character really hard to be consistently good throughout the stages of the game. And because of that, I would put her somewhere towards the bottom tier. I definitely wouldn't put her as low as Ike, maybe towards the top of the bottom tier, but still towards that lower end. Next up is going to be Crom, and I know that may be a little bit surprising to people considering that Marth is a Fire Emblem character, and trust me, we'll get to him in just a second, but Crom's recovery is pretty much his only flaw. Like, his disadvantage also isn't super great, but I would kind of just put that in with his recovery being bad, and aside from that, Crom is a very good character. Amazing advantage state, really strong neutral. He's got great combos and kill confirms out the wazoo, as well as just raw kill moves. But when you can get edge guarded by pretty much every single character in this game with ease, it's just a big struggle. If you have a counter, you're going to be killing Crom 100% of the time. Like, every time he's going off stage, he's probably just going to die. And it's just such a massive glaring issue for the character that you literally just cannot be consistent with Crom. Now, I think Crom is a really good secondary character because there are some matchups where the edge guarding isn't as big of a deal, and he's really going to thrive in those because, as I said, on stage, he is such a menace of a character, but when, like, a majority of the cast is able to easily deal with you, it's just really, really tough to be consistent. I would say that Crom has the worst recovery in the game. Maybe Ganon's is a little bit worse just because Crom's is still kind of scary to go after, but if you know how to deal with Crom uppy, he is just such a bad character, and because of that, I'm going to put him somewhere towards the lower end of the mid tier, like the lowest it could be. As I alluded to earlier, our next character is going to be Marth, and he's actually got the exact same issue as Crom, which is going to be consistency. He just has it for different reasons. And I will say, out of all of the characters that I've listed so far, I think Marth is the only one of them that you could solo main and top 8 a major with, but you're not going to be able to do that every single time, because the character is just naturally inconsistent. If you're not hitting every single tipper, you are going to be in a massive problem, and obviously I'm over-exaggerating a little bit, but for every Marth stock that you're stealing at like 60%, you're also having your opponent live to like 180%, 190%, and you're going to have to kill with like a really weak offstage interaction or an up throw, God forbid. Marth just has such a hard time getting the kill consistently, and when you're playing through long tournaments, that isn't the type of character that you want. And also, you just got to do a lot more work than the other sword characters. Like, you have to be spacing with the other sword characters, obviously, but that's one of the main upsides of a sword character. You just have bigger hitboxes, so you have bigger room for error. Marth isn't like that. If you're not max spacing every single Marth move, then you might as well not be playing the character. You have to be putting in so much effort, and sometimes it doesn't even pay off, and overall the character is just too much work for him to be rated super highly for me. Again, somewhere in that lower mid-tier area. I do think that this character's ceiling is really high, but on average, you shouldn't be expecting too much. We've gotten halfway through, and I just wanted to take the time to say, if you're not subbed yet, please do that. It really helps out the channel. We're trying to hit 5K by the end of the year, and I should also add that from this point on, all of these characters are good, high tier at worst, starting off with Byleth, who has arguably the highest high of any character in this game, as Leo was playing them when he was the best in the world. But I don't think that Byleth is quite a world's best character. She's not bad by any means, but I just think there are other characters that do it better. But overall, she's got a lot of very strong things about her. Her aerials, for example, you got forward air and back air, which are massively disjointed and hit like a truck. You have Nair, which is one of the best Nairs in the game. You can mix up the timing, so there's the landing hitbox messing people up, and you can land on both sides of people's shields, so you can cross them up with it. It's just really hard to actually pinpoint Byleth and punish her for this move when she's mashing it on your shield. And if you do manage to get one hit of the Nair, even just one hit, you're going to be able to confirm that into a kill in certain scenarios. It's just a really strong tool. Up air is one of the best juggling up airs in this game. Up B out of shield and just up B in general is such an insane move. Byleth just has a bunch of really massive hitboxes that hit really hard. Now, she doesn't have any massive downsides. Her disadvantage isn't super great, and she doesn't have amazing frame data, but it's less so Byleth having a massive flaw like the other sword characters had, and more so there are characters above her that I think are just better than her straight up because they either have better stats, they do more damage, whatever it is. So it's nothing really Byleth doing bad. I just think the characters above her do more, and I would have her towards the bottom of high tier. And before we get into our top three, I really quickly wanted to mention that I think Byleth is the only character that is super set in stone. The four characters that are below her, those are just kind of the bad Fire Emblem characters. You can put them in kind of any order and I'll let it slide. And it's the exact same thing as the three characters above her. Those are just the really good Fire Emblem characters, and the order doesn't matter a ton. I still have my set order, but it's not as big of a deal. The third best Fire Emblem character in the game is going to be Lucina. Now, Lucina is just a really solid character. She has some of the best edge guarding in the game. You essentially can't touch her shield because up B is just one of the best out of shield options in the game. She just has a really strong neutral in general because not only is her mobility really solid, but she just has really nice hitboxes, pretty decent frame data on them as well. And unlike Marth, you don't have to be as precise with your spacing. Obviously, you're still playing a sword character. You want to have good spacing there, but Lucina is a character that if you are better than your opponent, you're going to be winning like 90% of your matchups, and I know you should be winning 100% of your matchups if you're better than your opponent, but welcome to Smash Ultimate, that's not always the case. She's a character that allows a good player to be a good player, and she's able to get some pretty insane strings together just with the pressure that she's able to apply. I think her biggest issue as a character is she doesn't have any insane combo games. You're not going to be doing 50% off a Lucina string, and if you're doing 50%, that's because you did like the perfect Lucina combo, so she's not going to be hitting as hard as some of the other sword characters. Even some of the sword characters below her have better combo games, but her neutral is just so good that even if you're just getting 30-20% even off of your neutral interactions, you're able to use your amazing advantage state and amazing ledge trapping / edge guarding to get that extra damage. So maybe they're taking 50% from the interaction, and it's okay if you gotta win neutral one or two more times with Lucina than you would another character, because her neutral is probably the best thing about her. She's also amazing in a kill because she just has some really solid hitboxes, and overall she basically takes all of the inconsistency issues out of Marth, and you're just left with a solid sword character with some really good edge guarding and some really strong neutral. Also, I just forgot to say this, but I would put her right at the bottom of top tier or right at the top of high tier. We have reached the final two, and this was very tough for me to decide because I think both Roy and Corin are good characters, very good characters, but when it came down to who's the best between them, I had to go with Corin, and I'll explain why I think Corin's so good in just a second, but we got to talk about Roy first. Now, this character is obviously very, very good. He has some of the best damage output in the entire game. He has some of the best kill confirms in the entire game. His advantage state and ledge trapping is incredibly scary, but the thing that made me ultimately put him above, or rather below Corin, is going to be, again, that issue of consistency. You have to play Roy like he's more of a brawler character instead of a sword character, especially in last talk last hit scenarios. And that's the biggest benefit of having this massive sword, is I get to safely pressure you and safely throw out kill moves where you have to kind of crack my armor and get in. Roy doesn't really have that benefit. He has to approach, he has to get in his opponent's face so he can get that sweet spot jab, so he can confirm it into a back air. And when he's able to get those sweet spot hitboxes, he does a lot with them. And he's still a very scary character pressure-wise, but he doesn't have that benefit of being able to play at the max range of a swordie, and that adds a little bit to his inconsistency because people are often just staying right outside of Roy's range, and even if the Roy player overshoots, he's only going to get the weakened hitbox. I've seen so many times now where Roy players are in a last talk last hit scenario, or even just a scenario where they're trying to get the kill and they just can't do it because they're always hitting these sour spot hitboxes. Now, don't get me wrong, Roy's still a very good character. He's easily a top tier side B, still one of the most broken moves in this game. JR is still the best kill confirm in this entire game, but I just think Corin's a little bit better. So let's actually talk about Corin, and I want to say this right now, this could be a little bit of recency bias, and it probably is a little bit of recency bias. Cola took a large step back, and when he started competing again, he's been having some really strong results, but in 2023, Roy hasn't been doing super good, and Corin has been doing super good with both Shattuck and Nao putting some really impressive results on the board, and also Corin just looks like a beast of a character. She has the best frame trapping in the game, and I'm fairly confident in saying that. Up air is one of the most broken moves in Smash Ultimate. That thing kills you way too early. It's massive. It's a combo move. It also just does a lot of percent by itself, and her other aerials are also pretty solid. Back air and forward air, as well as nair, are all going to be massive, and they're also all going to be combo moves, except for back air. That's obviously going to be the combo ender. She has kill confirms out the wazoo. Maybe not as good as Roy, but still very solid. Pin is still a really strong move, and it's really tough to punish pin because you're able to just cancel the pin or go either forward or backward. Obviously, you have a lot of mix-up with it. It's very often that Corin players are able to throw out pin and get away scot-free because it's just a really difficult move to punish unless they're doing it in like a god-awful spot. She has a pretty good recovery because up B hitbox is really strong, as well as back air, giving you a lot of chances to position. And I have to circle back to the frame trapping. It just allows Corin extensions to go for so long. She's able to get so much consistent damage. She has some of the best advantage states in the game because of that up air that I mentioned earlier on. And Corin overall is just such a broken character, and I should also add that her matchup spread versus the current meta is insane. She does very well versus Rob, Steve, Game & Watch. I think she goes at least even with Sonic, which is not something that a lot of characters can say in this game, and she's just overall a great meta pick, and for all those reasons, and just Roy being a little bit more inconsistent, I'm going to say that Corin is the best Fire Emblem character in Smash Ultimate. And with that, I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the support. It's been absolutely unreal as of late. If there's anything I got wrong, something I left out, or if you just want to say hi, leave a comment down below. Be sure to sub while you're down there, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye!